Minister, in an act of wanton vandalism on our revolutionary history, 40 Herbert Park, home of the 1916 leader, the O'Reilly, was demolished yesterday. The house was built in 1907, and the O'Reilly, the only 1916 leader to die in battle, was the first occupant of the property. His widow, Nancy, lived here until her death in the 1960s. In 1913, the O'Reilly became one of the founding members of the Irish Volunteers. He was in charge of the first major arming of Irish volunteers from a consignment of German rifles ammunition that were smuggled into Howth aboard the Asgard. He joined the garrison of the GPO and was killed on the 28th of April 1916, leading a charge down Moore Street. And the battlefield on Moore Street was also subject to unscrupulous developers who wanted to ignore our historical and cultural history. The O'Reilly literally fought and died by Pearse's side. And whilst 40 Herbert Park is not significantly important in an architectural sense, it's immensely important in a historical and cultural sense. The Asgard running operation was planned here. All the signatories of the proclamation had met here. Also, that was mentioned before, Dublin City Council had unanimously passed the Sinn Féin motion to protect this property, and I, like many, was shocked and saddened to see it levelled and bulldozed to the ground yesterday. The arrogance by the developer to completely ignore the democratic will of the people is a sad reflection on the systemic greed of some developers today. Dublin City have announced, Minister, that they will be carrying out an investigation into the destruction of 40 Herbert Park, and as Minister responsible, what assistance will you be giving to the Council, and what are likely to be the repercussions on this developer?
Thank you, Lascan Corla, and I thank Deputies O'Callaghan and Ward for this very important topical debate. I appreciate that both deputies have considerable concern in relation to the demolition of O'Reilly House at 40 Herbert Park, Dublin 4, in respect of which I understand permission for such works was granted by An Bord Pleanála to Board on the 8th of September 2020. However, the deputies should be aware that under Section 30 of the Planning and Development Act 2000, as amended, I am specifically precluded from exercising any power or control in relation to any particular case with which a planning authority or the board is or may be concerned, except in very specific and extreme circumstances, which do not apply in this instance. Therefore, it would be inappropriate for me as Minister, with responsibility for planning matters, to comment on the merits or otherwise of the Board's decision to grant permission for the demolition works in question, or to express an opinion as to whether the works should be progressed or not. Under planning legislation, the decision as to whether to grant planning permission on an application with or without conditions is a matter for the relevant planning authority or the board on appeal. In making decisions on planning applications, a planning authority or the board on appeal is required to have regard to the proper planning and sustainable development of the area, the provisions of the development plan, any submissions or observations received, and relevant ministerial or government policies, including any guidelines issued by my department. The board, in determining an appeal, decides the matter as if the application had been made to the board in the first instance. Under Section 50 of the 2000 Act, anyone may apply to the High Court seeking a judicial review of any decision made by a planning authority or the board under the Act, where the person believes the validity of the decision may be in question. The application must be made within 8 weeks of the authority of the board's decision, which in this case has not yet lapsed, and it is a matter for the relevant planning authority, in the case Dublin City Council, to decide on any further action it may wish to take. With regard to the safeguards for the protective structures, Part 4 of the Planning and Development Act 2000 gives primary responsibility to local authorities to identify and protect archaeological heritage by including particular structures in the Record of Protected Structures, the RPS. Inclusion in the RPF places a duty of care on the owners and occupiers of protected structures and also gives planning authorities powers to deal with any development proposals which may affect them. I understand that this building in question was not included in the current RPS of Dublin City Council.
Thank you, Lieutenant Corla, and thank you, Minister, for that response. It was a very complicated, convoluted response that I'm sure is correct and factually, but I don't think the developer would have had a look at all that kind of stuff before he went in yesterday and bulldozed 40 Herbert Park. This was a sheer act of corporate greed, which will destroy Irish history and Irish heritage in this city if it's allowed to go on. The developer had blocked Dublin City Council from visiting the site after I think there was 2 letters by Dublin City Council to go and visit the site. And the Rattley famously said when he joined the fight for freedom from foreign occupiers in the GPO, "Well, I've helped to wind up the clock, I might as well hear it strike." Well, yesterday, the developer wound up the clock by the sheer wanton cultural vandalism of 40 Herbert Park. And if the public condemnation is followed up by political will, then the developer will hear that clock strike. But however, if this developer goes unpunished and is not punished in the strongest possible terms, then it will give the green light for more of our historical and cultural heritage to be destroyed. So, Minister, I ask you, for what died the sons of Róisín? Was it greed?
Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, Lieutenant Corla. And again, I thank both deputies for their response. As I indicated earlier, it is inappropriate for me as Minister with responsibility for planning matters to become involved in or make any comment on this matter as already outlined, as the law simply precludes me from doing so. Planning authorities and the board are independently statutory bodies and under the provisions of the Planning Act, as stated previously, are independent in the performance of their functions. The development works in question are a matter for the planning applicant concern the relevant local authority and the board as appropriate, and I am precluded from and I have no role in the matter. And also the deputies will be aware that the record of protected structures is a reserved function of the local authority system and primarily their responsibility. And in this matter, this will obviously now be an enforcement issue for Dublin City Council and wholly under their remit. Thank you.